everyone. Thanks for tuning into From Cradle to Class, the impact of parental class on attachment, socialization, and social responsibility.
A podcast by two developmental psychologists, and today we will be sharing some research findings. I'm Dr. Carolyn Combs.
Dr. Jasmine Johnson. And before diving into today's discussion, we think it will be fair to provide some background on our discussion's content. So, Dr. Combs, what is parental class?
In this context, parental class refers to the class and socioeconomic status, or SES, that a parent is in, which could be lower class, middle class, upper class. Now, what is attachment?
Yes. Attachment, it is an individual's ability to form meaningful connections to others. Within the concept of attachment, there are 4 different styles. There's anxious avoidant, anxious ambivalent, secure, and dismissive. Relationships between parents and their children heavily influence the child's relationships later in life. That is according to Mahasne 2013. Additionally, SES conditions affect societal norms of parental responsibility. Pender Hughes 2009. Parents in low SES communities, they'll have different views on their responsibilities to their children than median SES parents. This is because low SES parents have less means to give their child adequate opportunities. Let's see what socialization is.
According to Oxford Languages, socialization is the process of learning to behave in a way that is acceptable to society. Now, what is social responsibility?
Yes. Social responsibility, it's the idea that it is everyone's responsibility to do what is right for the majority. What are the 4 different parenting styles again?
So first we'll start with authoritarian, which is characterized by low acceptance and high control. It also has one-way communication with the parent and the child, being that the parent is telling the child something, but the child doesn't really get to be involved in any decisions. Authoritative, on the other hand, is characterized by two-way communication. It has emotional warmth, but it also has strong rules and boundaries. Permissive is child-driven initiatives over indulgence and avoidance of the conflict between the children and the parent by the parent. Neglectful is the last parental style.
Mm-hmm.
It is noted by uninvolvement, lack of nurturing, and lack of guidance. Now, low SES has been tied to the use of authoritarian parental styles, according to Bornstein 2019. The mediator between SES and authoritarian parental style has been identified as psychological distress. Middle and upper class parents tend to have more authoritative parenting styles. Although SES does not always dictate parental style, there is a connection between the two. Now, where do these concepts correlate?
Yes, that is a great question that segues into our next point. There have been findings that show that parental class influences parenting styles, which affects how attachments are formed. According to Bornstein 2019, low SES is tied to the use of authoritarian parenting styles. But as I went through these studies, something that crossed my mind as I read these articles is, could this be attributed to the structure of jobs held by individuals in low socioeconomic strata? Think about it. A lot of jobs held by those in low SES groups, they have very rigid, tight structures, supervision of powers, and minimal room for individuality. Every day they come in, clock out, and it's the same exact thing. Each day they go to work and they obey the rules that are placed upon them. Could it be possible that they carry this structure with them when they go home to their families? These parents, they work long, hard hours, and by the time they get home, they may not have the energy or the time to establish boundaries with their children. Setting this specific structure for how they expect things to go it may seem like the most efficient route for them. You know, people take what they have and what they know and they do the best they can. Children parented under this style, they tend to have anxious attachment styles due to the strict rules and lack of warmth, according to Zainali 2011. Additionally, the mediator between SES and the authoritarian parental styles has been identified as psychological distress, according to Macoma 2023. Low SES families, they face many challenges like job insecurity, economic stress, and negative environmental influences. To them, strict rules may seem like the best way to keep their family safe. With the culture they are socialized in, it is likely the norm. They view it as their social responsibility to establish rigid expectations for their children to follow, according to Zainali 2011.
Right. And middle and upper class parents tend to have more authoritative parenting styles, and this is likely because of access to more resources. Children parented under this style tend to have more secure attachment styles, which can be attributed to both clear boundaries, structure, and parental warmth. Ultimately, SES conditions affect societal norms of parental responsibility. A 1993 study found that low SES parents tend to stress conformity, whereas middle and upper class parents tend to distress self-direction more. Pinder-Hughes 2000 also found that African American parents were more likely to use authoritarian parental styles than their European American counterparts. Now, this finding was statistically significant, but small in nature, less than 2% of the discipline responses. I personally believe this probably has something to do with generational wealth and trauma. African Americans have consistently had less opportunities to grow wealth than European Americans. I imagine that the change of parental attitudes changes not only with SES, but also with how many generations a family has been a part of a particular SES.
Oh, yeah. So, for example, imagine a couple that grew up in poverty attaining wealth in their adulthood. The parents will probably adapt more of authoritative parenting practices than if they were still living in poverty, but more authoritarian parenting styles than someone who did not grow up in poverty, because that's still like embedded in with them. The effects of poverty are pervasive, even throughout generations. I would be interested in seeing more studies on this topic. American society is authoritarian in nature for low SES people, especially in regards of people of color, according to Pinder-Hughes 2000. The Pinder-Hughes study, it noted that this may encourage African Americans to stress authoritarian parenting styles for their children in order to prepare their children for how they will be treated as adults.
According to Monaset et al. 2013, parenting styles impact a child's personality development, social interaction, and also relationships. Authoritative parenting has been tied to more mature and pro-social behavior in children. The study also found that authoritative parenting is positively related to anxious ambivalent, avoidant attachment, and secure attachment styles. Negligent parenting, on the other hand, was negatively related to anxious ambivalent attachment styles in children. Authoritarian parenting was related to secure and avoidant attachment styles. I believe that my parents used a mix of authoritarian and authoritative styles. I think it's important to keep in mind that studies show authoritative parenting yields the best outcomes for children.
Yeah, I agree.
Authoritarian parenting teaches children to learn from self-interest rather than teaching morality, which authoritative parenting should attempt to do. This means children will not change any moral behavior with punishment, but rather continue immoral or bad behavior in privacy when they think they will not be caught. I think I learned to adjust to the world out of self-interest and have had to unlearn that and learn how to live my life based on morality and my own values.
Those are all very good points. Thanks for sharing, Dr. Combs. I can also attest to the differences in parenting styles linked to SES. I grew up in a black, middle class American family. My parents enforced what I would consider pretty reasonable rules, not too strict. And, the older I got, the more I was able to communicate with them and establish boundaries. Communication and boundary setting are things I implement as I form personal relationships and, maintain those healthy relationships. Those I grew up around, they also had the same style in their families, so this is what I was socialized around. Television shows like Everybody Hates Chris, they show a clear depiction of a family with low SES following the authoritarian style of parenting. In the show, viewers can see how there are moments where Chris and his siblings feared their parents. Even as I watched the show growing up, I could see that Rochelle, she did not play. I would not mess with her. And another show depicting a family with low SES is Shameless. However, their parents had a negligent parenting style. The siblings, they raised themselves, which led to a lot of them having avoidant attachment styles, and it affected their inability to trust and form and maintain healthy relationships.
Yeah, well, that's all we have today. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you were able to draw some of the patterns discussed from the connections that parental class, attachment, social responsibility, and socialization all have with each other. Thank you.
Thank you. See you next week.